What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Fear the Walking Dead Season 2, Episode 11, Pablo and Jessica. And as I said last week, anything that doesn't have to do with Travis and Chris at this point, not that interesting. I still did watch it, though, and managed to stay awake. Somehow. I don't know how I did it. But anyway, so, yeah, you have two main stories in this one. You've got Maddie, Strand, and Alicia with the two other people. They want to stay at the hotel. We have reached now season 3, I think, of The Walking Dead, where they started to realize, oh, we need to find a place to settle down. Once again, we're only like a month into the apocalypse, but we're already thinking, okay, we need to find a place to settle down because everything else is done. So, I honestly would love to see if anybody that watches these videos, if you can find me an actual timeline, like somewhere online, I'm sure somebody's made it at this point, a timeline that shows where Rick and his group were and at what point they finally started to do these things, like started realizing, okay, things have gone to hell, we're not getting it back. When they started realizing we need to survive, when they started realizing, oh, we need to find a place to live, when they started realizing, oh, there are people out here who are crazy, who are starting their own little crazy cult things. I want to see when all of that stuff started happening in The Walking Dead and compare it to where the Fear of the Walking Dead is right now. Because I'm pretty sure they're only like a month into this. And stuff that's happening 3 or 4 years down the line in The Walking Dead, I'm already seeing. Just like, anyway, I've talked about that before, not going to get into it again. So they're looking at this hotel thinking this is a good place for us to try to hunker down, build up some defenses and live here. The people that are running the hotel now that Elena gave them the keys to it are like, no, she's not allowed. We're too scared. We're going to do it by ourselves. At this point, Maddie has pretty much become Rick at this point. She's not really Rick because Rick is a badass and he's awesome and she's more annoying and whiny at times. But she's starting to sort of become a leader somehow. Like, people are actually listening to her whenever she talks. I don't know how. Nothing compels me whenever I listen to her. So yeah, she's trying to convince them. Apparently Strand's like, oh, you're a great negotiator. I'm like, she is? How? When did this happen? But anyway, so they agree that they'll start clearing out the walkers and, start helping out as long as, they're allowed to live there. I wasn't really clear on whether or not they were going to let Elena stay. Because the mother is still in complete denial that this lady who locked them all in a room, which somehow they managed to escape from anyway, is the one that killed her daughter, even though it was clearly her husband who bit her face off. For just to create some extra tension, I suppose. But her almost son-in-law is the other one. I didn't even realize this whenever they were talking to him last time. I didn't realize who he was, and when I realized that it was actually the one that was going to marry her daughter, I'm like, oh, so he escaped from the room too. That's interesting, And of course, by the end of it, we find out that he's actually kept his almost wife, in some room elsewhere. So I'm still waiting for an explanation of how they got out of that locked room. But until then, it's a locked room mystery. So if you're interested in those, have a crack at it. Lady locks them in. They all make it out okay, despite the fact that there are 2 walkers in there. So that's going on with them. They ultimately come up with this plan to lead all of the walkers out to the pier, and then Maddie jumps off into the water, and the walkers just start jumping off too. Because who knows? I really don't know. Like, it would have made sense if maybe she had some sort of noise-making thing, and then she used the noise-making thing and brought it into the water with her, and the noise-making thing was still in the water, like floating on it or something, and then they were following the noise off. But no, she's making noise, and then she stops, and they're still coming after her, and then she jumps off. The first few follow her off, that makes sense. But then they just keep going. They just keep going and keep going. And apparently they all just jump off. I have several issues with this one whole idea. I have several issues. One, they tried to do the herd scene that we just had in The Walking Dead season 6. When they found the big herd and they tried to herd them away from themselves. That's pretty much what they just tried to do, except it was smaller, except several other issues. One, no hitches. There's nothing that went wrong. As soon as they start planning this, as soon as Alicia brings that up, I'm thinking, okay, this could be interesting. If they do this right, this could be interesting. Something goes wrong, maybe a couple people die. This could be intense. This could be an intense scene. As Maddie is leading them outside, I'm thinking, nothing's going to go wrong, is it? They're going to be completely fine, aren't they? This stupid piece of crap show. Like, you have such a good setup for something to go wrong. Maybe somebody makes some noise when they shouldn't. Maybe, I don't know, the walkers start clawing at Maddie as she's in the water. Maybe they can actually swim. I don't know. You could do so many different things. But to just have her jump off the pier, and then all the walkers just follow her off the pier, and the problem is solved. There's no death. There's no intensity in the scene. Even Maddie is just like, alright, all these walkers are walking right at me. I should probably be extremely scared right now. But instead, I'm just going to look very intensely and wait. And now I'm going to jump off the pier. There's no fear. There's no intensity. There's no worry from me. Even though I kind of want them to die, there still should be like, oh, what if they could die right now? That would be crazy. Even the scene they tried to throw in before this, Alicia's talking to Maddie and she's talking about, oh, I saw a walker and she had the same hair as you and I thought I'd lost you, and she's like, you won't lose me, I promise. I'm like, this scene would be so much more intense if it felt like one of them might actually die. But I don't feel like that. With The Walking Dead, at least until this past season, whenever Glenn died and then came back to life, before that happened, I've had this feeling like anybody could die. And it started from season 2, whenever, if you guys watch The Walking Dead, if you just started watching Fear the Walking Dead without watching The Walking Dead, go watch The Walking Dead. It's so much better. But season 2, Walking Dead, spoilers for those of you who haven't seen it, little girl goes missing, and you're thinking the entire time, okay, they're going to find her at some point, right? They're going to find her. Somebody probably just picked her up. They're going to find her, right? Right? They find her walker. That made me feel like anybody could die. There was another a girl that was on the show for quite a few seasons, and she ends up going missing at one point for most of the season. And you're just like, okay, they're going to find her, right? They're going to find her, they're going to save her, she's going to be back, right? As soon as they find her, she gets killed. It felt like anybody could die. When Glenn died, I actually felt like, oh my gosh, like Glenn's gone. And that's part of why it was so frustrating when they actually didn't kill him off, because it felt like they went back. It was the first time that I ever felt like they went back on something. Like they actually had the balls to kill off a main character like Glenn, and then they went back on it. With Fear the Walking Dead, because I need to get back to that show. With Fear the Walking Dead, I don't feel like that at all. They killed off Chris's mother in the first season. That's the only semi-main character that they killed off. And even then, we only knew her for one season. These characters, we've known them for maybe 1.5, kind of. It's not even really that, because these seasons aren't nearly as long as The Walking Dead, so we have less time with them, and yet I don't feel like they're in any danger at any point. By the end of this season, I fully expect all of these main characters to still be here. If they're not, great, the show actually did something ballsy, but I don't feel like they're going to. I feel like they've got these characters, they don't plan to kill any of them off, and this scene that they had just sort of proves that for me. That they had this crazy setup where they're leading walkers out onto a pier just to jump off and have them follow into the water. They could have done something even crazier, like lead them out into the pier and then, I don't know, break down the pier. Bust up the pier so now the walkers follow with the pier into... No, just jump off and the walkers are going to follow you in like a bunch of idiots. Because we all know that the walkers, they don't actually follow the smell of humans. They just follow what the walkers around them are doing. You know, like that one scene in The Walking Dead where they were walking along the side of the road and the walkers walk at them, and then they move out the way so they fall into the ditch. You know, those walkers weren't actually going after them. They saw the walkers walking into the ditch and thought, "Oh, that looks like fun. I'm going to do that too," because that's how that actually works. You know, according to Fear the Walking Dead, they think that that's how the walkers' minds operate. That they're just like, "Oh, that walker in front of me is walking off this pier. I'm going to go too." Like, I realize that the brains don't actually work in these walkers, but I feel like the scent of the humans standing on the beach would probably get the ones at the back. So to just assume that all of the walkers, all like 70 or 80 or however many there were, in fact, now that I think about it, this was a very big hotel. The fact that there were only like 70 or 80 kind of bugs me. Like, I feel like there should be like 200. You know, that would have been much more insane. But it was like a smaller group than I was expecting. Anyway, that was a side note. But yeah, that I feel like I've talked about this scene enough. I probably need to move on at this point. But yeah, that whole scene was stupid, really frustrating. It leads to them sitting around having dinner together, and then Strand finds out that, you know, Oscar guy is missing, so he goes to talk to him, finds out that they kept Jessica, and then goes into the room to kill her at the end of the episode. So that's how their story ends off. Rather boring, rather frustrating, because it shouldn't have been boring because they had such a good setup, a good idea for it, and they just wasted it. Made it so easy, so simple, so non-problematic. It was just, oh, we have a problem. Simple fix, we're good. On the other hand, it's not as bad as the, for some reason, love story between Nick and what's-her-face. I don't even remember her name because I care so little for her character right now. Yeah, it's the one girl that we saw. I knew this was coming because they showed us in the previews of like this season on Fear the Walking Dead. They showed them about to make out, and I'm just like, oh, so that's gonna happen later. This is the episode where it happens. For some odd reason, you know, I guess you could argue that she's feeling really emotionally torn up because she found out her brother's dead, and so the first thing that she thinks is, oh well, this Nick guy is pretty nice, so, you know, I guess I'll throw myself into his arms. But something just tells me that, I don't know. Maybe I'm not normal, which I'm not. But normally, this doesn't happen like this. I don't know. It's just so frustrating because it feels like they're trying to throw this bullshit romance into the middle of all of this stuff to give us a reason to care whenever she dies. You know, and maybe that's spoiling something, maybe not, I don't know. But I'm watching this, and all I can think is they're trying to force a reason onto us to make us care when she dies. But the false pretense that they're using is that we actually care about Nick and his story, which I honestly do not right now, because his whole story has been kind of bullshit up to this point. Like, I kind of imagine Nick as a walker, and he's dreaming about all this stuff right now, because he really should be dead by this point. You know, everything that happened in the first episode, so many times he should be dead by this point. I think he actually is dead. This is him, like, in the afterlife, imagining what could have been if he hadn't died. So, anyway, I just, watching that, I'm sitting here thinking they're trying to make me care about her, so whenever they kill her off later, we can be like, oh no, Nick just lost this girl that he loved, which he doesn't really love. He just, you know, they 3-day hookup. That's love, and only because, oh, he's so nice to kids, and oh, he's done so much to help this community. I'm like, dude, he's crushed up some oxy to help, like, lessen the amount of drugs that they're giving, and he nearly got them all killed. That's all he's done for this community. And honestly, he even says that. Like, the doctor comes up and talks to him, he's like, you deserve all of this. He's like, I just cut some pills. He's like, no, you've done more than that. I'm like, he has? When? Because he kicked the soccer ball with some kids? Am I missing something? Like, yeah, he gave that one girl whose dad died. He gave her the candy bar thing, but he nearly got them all killed just to do that. Like, are we just neglecting that? And so today, whenever he's working really hard to cut up these pills to make, these guys that they're giving the drugs to make them think that they're getting drugs when they're actually getting like half of it. It was very complicated how he explained it, but pretty much that's the only thing that he's useful for is anything to do with drugs. So what a coinkydink. I mean, the bad guys want drugs, and he happens to be a druggie, and so he knows all about this stuff and knows a way to trick them. And what are the odds? All I can think is that's all he's done. I mean, it's sort of like he did something bad, and this was his way to make up for it. He even said that at the beginning. He said, I want to help out. This is how I can help. And by the end of it, for some reason, this doctor's just like, oh, you've done more than just cut some pills. You've done more than that. I feel like we've skipped some scenes. I feel like somewhere in between, we've skipped a few scenes and missed something. Maybe they deleted a couple scenes that they thought were not vital, and now that's why I'm confused, because they actually were vital scenes that explain what Nick has done for this community aside from almost screw it up and then make up for his mistake. Because that's like if I punch a guy in the face, I'm like, here, let me buy you a soda, and then he's like, dude, you're cool. Let me introduce you to my hot sister. Like that's pretty much what happened. Like, I did something bad, I did something to make up for it, and then he's like, you deserve more than that. Let me do something else for you. It really doesn't make any sense. It's all BS. This girl is brought in so that we have a connection to her whenever she dies, which, if you don't really care about Nick at this point, doesn't really matter. So this entire story is just completely a waste of time. And even, like, there are a couple scenes in it where I'm just like, what happened? Like, they leave, which by the time they get out there, for some reason the blood that they use to get out of the walkers is gone now. Like, I guess they have a cleaning thing. We didn't see any of that. And then they go to take the oxy or whatever. They go to take that to the guys that have the supplies. Come back without us seeing any of that. We didn't see the interaction. We didn't see the guys talking to them. We didn't see any of this stuff. It just they come back and it's all done. That seems more important than this final scene that you showed us between Nick and his girl. Like, I would have rather seen that to see how these guys are reacting to this kid who threatened them last time and now is coming back with the... You see my issue. Hopefully you guys understand why I'm so frustrated if you're watching this and if you watch the show. It's just, there's so many issues, there's so many stories that feel forced, there's so many stories that feel just completely unnecessary. There's so many stupid decisions and no consequences. I mean, like I said, you want to watch a good herd scene? Go watch The Walking Dead Season 6. The entirety, well, until halfway through. Then beginning of the second half of Season 6, they actually finish with it. But watch it. It's so well done. Things go wrong. And yes, the Glenn scene is a bit stupid. But it's so well done because things go wrong. They have to think quickly on their feet to try to fix the problem. What did they do here? They just brought the walkers out, jumped into the ocean, the walkers followed. Problem solved. Congratulations. There's no intensity, there's no thinking, there's no nothing. They're just like, oh, we need to have a herd walker scene. Let's do it. How are we going to solve it? Who cares? I'm really frustrated and really tired at the same time, so it's making me even more frustrated because, yeah. So anyway, long story short, didn't like this episode. I really, really wish that I could see more of Travis and Chris because I feel like that's the story that's actually interesting at this point. And for some reason, we're not seeing any of it. It's like, first episode of the second half was Nick, then it was Nick with Alicia and Maddie on the side, and then it was Alicia and Maddie with Travis and Chris, and that was actually interesting. And now it's back to Nick with Alicia and Maddie. So we've had one episode with Travis and Chris, and it's the only episode that I think has actually been somewhat enjoyable because that was fun to watch. And now it's not even on in this episode. Like, couldn't even get that right. So, yep. In my opinion, good episode last week, followed up with a bad episode this week. Maybe it'll be good next week. Maybe they'll bring Travis and Chris back. Who knows? But I don't have my hopes high anymore because it's getting really, really dumb. And probably really, really predictable. I feel like I've just predicted pretty much the rest of the season, but we'll see. Anyway, that's what I have to say about this. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. And before I close out this thing, I did want to give a little bit of a shout out because there's one person who's been constantly commenting on these reviews, giving me their opinions as well. And last week they put this brilliant line that I think I'm going to use from now on whenever there are unbelievable coincidences in the show. You know, like in the first episode, whenever Nick somehow managed to escape the dogs, somehow managed to escape the walkers, somehow managed to not get shot in the head when the guys were shooting at the walkers, somehow managed to survive dehydration because it happened to rain. This person had this line to describe unbelievable coincidences. So, just to use it in context, I would say, instead of, normally I would say something like, and Nick survived dehydration because it started raining, because reasons. Now I'm going to say, because Glenn had a dumpster. I love it. It's funny. Anyway. Now, this is my exhaustion talking, so I'm going to go to sleep now. So, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Leave a like and subscribe for future Fear the Walking Dead reviews if you even want to keep watching this show. And I'll see you guys at the next one. Peace out.